The movie opens at a hospital where Kate Coleman and her husband, John, walk in, and Kate is clearly pregnant and clearly in labor. In the delivery room, Kate is in a lot of pain and asks where John is, but nobody will tell her anything. The doctor tells her to relax, but Kate knows something is wrong with her baby. The nurse tells her that the baby is stillborn, but they have to deliver it anyway. After some time, a baby's cry is heard and the nurse hands her a stillborn baby covered in a bloody blanket. Kate screams in horror. Kate springs up in bed after her nightmare. The next morning, Kate goes to see Dr. Browning, her therapist. Kate says that perhaps the nightmares are happening because she and John are seeing children that same week, so they can adopt one. Kate goes straight from Dr. Browning's office to a school for the deaf or hearing impaired. She is greeted by her and John's 5-year-old daughter Max. Max holds up a picture she drew and Kate says in sign language that it's very beautiful. As Kate is driving home with Max in her car seat, she spots a young man with his child walking together. Kate is so distracted that a large truck almost hits her. Later in the night, Kate goes to tuck Max into bed. Max removes her hearing aid, so everything goes silent for a while. Through sign language, and subtitles for us, the audience, Kate asks Max if she wants to read a bedtime story. After kissing Max goodnight, Kate goes to the bedroom and goes to the bathroom to take her antidepressant. Kate and John crawl into bed, and Kate says that even though she isn't having second thoughts about adopting, she is excited and nervous. The next morning, Kate and John go to St. Mariana's orphanage for girls. As they walk inside, someone is watching them from a window. Kate and Sister Abigail watch the girls play and Sister Abigail says that adopting an older child isn't an easy decision to make, but Kate says they're ready. Sister Abigail asks where John is and Kate says that he is using the bathroom. John leaves the bathroom and goes to look for Kate, but stops when he hears the sound of a girl singing. He follows the singing and sees a young girl sitting alone in a room, painting. John steps into the room and the girl introduces herself as Esther, and John begins to look through her paintings. Esther talks to John and Kate, and soon the couple agrees that Esther is the one that they want to adopt. John and Kate take Esther home, and Max rushes out to greet them. Esther uses sign language to greet her, and Max takes an instant liking to her new sister. However, when Danny isn't fond of her, he even asks John, rather loudly, why Esther is dressed so differently, and John quickly shushes him. Esther is thrilled when she sees that they have a piano, and Kate offers to teach her to play and Esther accepts instantly. Kate is in the kitchen, putting away the cake and speaking with Barbara about what she plans to do. Kate says that she'll get Esther settled and then begin to teach again. Barbara reminds her that she said she wouldn't go back to that job. Kate assures her mother-in-law and says that she isn't going back to Yale, but plans to give piano lessons to kids from the house. Esther comes downstairs wearing a dress that is old-fashioned and outdated, which causes Max and Danny to laugh a little bit. Kate sends them to the bus and tells Esther that most girls don't dress like that anymore, and she should change, but Esther says that she likes to wear dresses. Kate gives in and allows Esther to wear the dress to school. The kids arrive at school and the teacher introduces Esther to her class. A girl named Brenda teases Esther. Esther says nothing, only stares coldly and walks calmly to her seat. Later that night, Kate runs a bath for Esther. As Kate is putting away Esther's clothes and listening to her sing, she finds that one of Esther's drawers is stuck. After some tugging and pulling, Kate discovers a book with a photo of a man inside of it. Kate accidentally drops the book and Esther's singing goes quiet, but starts back up after a minute. Kate shoves the book back in its hiding spot and continues about the laundry. As she goes down the hall to Max's room, Esther opens the bathroom door and looks coldly out. Obvious, she knew what Kate was up to. The next day at school, Esther is passing down the hall at the same time as Danny and Tyler. Tyler comments that Danny's sister is a total spaz, but Danny says that she isn't his sister and purposely knocks a book out of Esther's hands. As Esther kneels to pick up the book, Brenda comes along and picks it up for her. When Brenda sees that the book is a Bible, she holds it up and calls Esther a Jesus freak. Esther tries to take the Bible from Brenda, but it soon falls to the floor and the pages scatter everywhere. Esther panics and rushes to pick them up, while a group gathers and begins to laugh at her. Brenda reaches to pull off the ribbon around Esther's neck, but becomes startled when Esther screams and kicks until everyone is silent. Danny is extremely weirded out as Esther continues screaming as though she were possessed. The next day, John is with Max and Esther at the park, pushing Max on the swings. Joyce Patterson, the Colemans' next-door neighbor, arrives in risque clothing. Esther listens in on her conversation with John, but suddenly becomes distracted when she sees Brenda walking across the playground. After Joyce leaves, John becomes a bit nervous and goes to smoke a cigarette while Esther and Max begin to roam the playground. Brenda is nervous as she makes her way towards the slide. She then gets the feeling that she is being followed. As she looks down the slide, Esther comes from behind her and pushes her off. Brenda is in a great deal of pain from a broken ankle. Esther walks away but realizes Max has seen everything, so she tells Max that if they want to stay together then she cannot tell anyone what happened. At supper, John and Kate are asking Esther about what happened, but she says that she and Brenda were playing and she accidentally fell. Kate asks Max if she saw what happened, and Max says that Brenda simply slipped. Max signs something to Danny, but he can't understand her and asks Kate what she said. Esther interrupts and tells him that Max asked for him to pass the bread and butter. Danny says that he wasn't asking her, and Esther simply shrugs and begins to cut her steak, and Danny tells her to eat normally and Esther says she is eating normally. Danny asks if that is the way she eats in Transylvania, to which Esther says she is from Russia and Transylvania is in Romania. Danny goes further and says if she was taught that at the school for retards. John orders Danny to apologize to his sister. Danny has reached his breaking point and says, "She is not my fucking sister," and rushes from the table. As punishment for his outburst, John locks up Danny's treehouse and says he will unlock it when Danny apologizes to Esther. A few days later, Sister Abigail comes for a visit after being informed of Brenda's accident. As Kate and John speak with Sister Abigail about the accident, Esther panics and goes to Max's room and tells her that a mean lady is coming to take her away and asks Max for help, and Max agrees. They sneak into John's office and begin to search around for the keys to the padlock to the treehouse. Max finds some keys and hands them off to Esther. Esther uses the keys to unlock John's safe, where she finds a gun, partially loads it and points it directly at Max's forehead and asks Max if she wants to play. Max, clearly frightened, shakes her head and Esther lowers the gun. Max and Esther rush to the bridge that isn't far from the house and they know Sister Abigail's car will pass it. Esther tells Max to stand in front of Sister Abigail's car and wave her hands to get her to stop, but Max is nervous. As Sister Abigail comes driving along, Max is frozen with fear and refuses to move. Having enough, Esther pushes Max onto the road and Sister Abigail slams on the brakes and her car swerves off the road. Sister Abigail climbs out of her car and rushes to a hysterical Max. Sister Abigail asks Max if she is okay, but a shadow looms over her and Sister Abigail looks up, just as Esther beats on her head with a hammer. Sister Abigail is bleeding and unconscious, but Esther knows she will probably wake up soon. She pulls Max to her feet and tells her to stop crying. Esther forces Max to help her move Sister Abigail's body before another car comes along. They push her body down a hill, but Sister Abigail regains conscious and tries to climb back up. Esther grabs the hammer and beats Sister Abigail until she is pretty bloody and definitely dead. Esther takes a traumatized Max up to the treehouse and removes her bloody gloves and dress, but Max is still crying. Esther says that if she is caught for the murder, then Max will go to jail with her and tells Max that she won't tell on her if she doesn't tell on Esther. Max agrees and Esther comforts her. As the two are climbing down from the treehouse, Danny watches from afar and Esther spots him but walks away anyway. As Danny sleeps, he is startled awake when Esther holds a box cutter blade to his throat and asks him what he saw. He says that he only saw her and Max coming down from the treehouse, and Esther says that if he tells anyone then she will castrate him. Danny, clearly upset, accidentally wets himself. She releases Danny and leaves the room calmly. As Kate is in the kitchen, Esther comes and says that she has a surprise for her. She holds out a bundle of white roses that Kate recognizes instantly. They were the roses from baby Jessica's dedication garden. Kate snaps and grabs Esther by the arm, and Esther lets out a scream. John hears the commotion and Esther runs off sobbing, while John comforts Kate, who is weeping openly as she crumples on the floor and looks down at the roses. While Kate is in the greenhouse, still upset about the orchid, Esther sneaks into the tool shed and grabs a screwdriver. She wraps it in a rag and places it in her mouth, and then places her arm inside of a vise. She tightens the vise until her arm breaks and then goes to bed and cries for John that her arm still hurts from where Kate grabbed her. Horrified by the bruises on Esther's arm, John takes her to the doctor. Kate goes up to her bedroom and sees Esther laying in her and John's bed, and being comforted by John. John tells Kate that she broke her arm, but Kate argues that she didn't really grab Esther that hard. John says that it would be best for Kate to sleep downstairs. Kate contemplates drinking but decides not to after seeing the pond that almost cost Max her life. She pours the wine down the sink and sleeps downstairs. A few days later, Dr. Browning is called to the house and Kate still defends herself and says that she didn't hurt Esther at all. At that moment, John places 2 wine bottles out on the table. He tells Kate that Esther found them, which simply infuriates Kate, but John can't help but ask if Kate is beginning to drink again. Dr. Browning is wondering the same thing as well. Kate defends herself again and says that she thought about drinking the wine but poured it down the sink, along with one of the bottles. John asks why she has the other bottle then, and he and Kate argue. Finally, John drops the bombshell. If Kate doesn't go into rehab, and then he will divorce her and take the kids with him. At the top of the stairs, Max listens in and Esther comes really close to her and whispers that she will shoot Kate if she tells. The next day, Danny sneaks to Max's room and asks her if she knows anything about Esther, and Max confesses by showing Danny the pictures of Brenda's accident, Sister Abigail's death, and the car accident. Max also tells him that the hammer and Esther's bloody clothes are up in the treehouse. Danny tells Max that once they get the hammer that John and Kate will believe them and Esther will be locked away. Unfortunately, Esther overhears the entire thing. The next day, Danny sneaks up to his treehouse and searches for the hammer and clothes but can't find them. Esther suddenly appears and throws the hammer and the clothes to the floor. She tells him that Max will be arrested too for helping her, but Danny says that Max was forced to do it. Esther pours lighter fluid over the evidence and lights a match, setting the evidence and the treehouse on fire. She escapes and locks the treehouse up with Danny still inside it, and simply watches with a smile as Danny screams for Kate. Danny crawls out a window, but it's too late and the treehouse crumbles and Danny is rendered unconscious and completely broken, but miraculously alive. As Esther lifts a rock to finish him off, Max pops out of nowhere and pushes Esther before she can do anything, and Kate arrives just in time. At the hospital, the family waits for word on Danny's condition. A doctor comes and says that Danny is alive and in stable condition. Kate asks if he will remember anything and the doctor says they'll have to wait a while before they know. Kate and John walk away for a while and Kate says that either Esther or Danny started the fire, and John says that he doesn't know which one did it. Kate is frustrated by John but gives in and says she'll go to rehab only if Esther leaves the house at the same time. Esther asks Barbara for $1 for the soda machine and then walks out of the waiting room, with no intention of getting a simple drink. She sneaks into Danny's room, removes the heart monitor from his finger, and puts it on her own so no one will know there is a problem, and tries to suffocate him with a pillow. Max, getting the feeling that Esther is up to something, goes to get Kate. Meanwhile, Esther, thinking she has killed Danny, puts the monitor back on his finger and alarms go off. The doctors rush down the hall to Danny's room. He has flatlined. Kate and John panic, but breathe a sigh of relief when Danny has a pulse and is stabilized again. Kate freaks out and knows Esther did something. She screams at Esther, calls her a bitch, and then slaps her hard. Orderlies sedate Kate while John comforts Esther and watches sadly as his wife drifts to sleep. When Kate wakes up, she is groggy but sees John is with her. She asks if Danny is okay and John says that they are running some tests and he should be home in a few days. He also says that he is taking Esther and Max back to the house. Kate makes him promise that Esther will get nowhere near Max. John says nothing and leaves the room to take the girls home. As John is tucking Max in, Esther comes into the room and Max becomes frightened. Esther wishes her sweet dreams and kisses her forehead, stealing her hearing aid. John finishes putting Max to bed and Esther walks away. Max soon falls asleep and John leaves the room. John, clearly upset by all that has happened, finds the wine and pours quite a few glasses. Suddenly, Esther comes downstairs wearing dark makeup and a strapless dress, but John is so drunk that instead of getting angry, he sobs openly and tells Esther that he is scared for Danny. Esther assures him that he is a wonderful husband and father, and also tells him that she loves him. When Esther comes onto him, John comes back to reality and yells at her to go to her room. Esther runs to her room, sobbing hysterically as the makeup streams down her face. Meanwhile, Kate is resting in the hospital when she gets a call on her cell phone. It is Dr. Varava from the Sarne Institute in Estonia. He says he received the picture of Esther and asks where she is. Kate says that she is at the house with her husband. Dr. Varava tells Kate to call her husband and to tell him to get their family out of the house and call the police. Kate says that John won't believe her. He then explains to Kate that Esther is Lena Klammer, and she has a rare disorder called hypopituitarism, which causes dwarfism. She was born in 1976 and is 33 years old. Kate is in disbelief and asks why she was at their mental institution. Dr. Varava explains that she was one of their most violent patients and she was forced to wear a straitjacket to keep her from hurting their staff. She constantly tried to fight her way out of the straitjacket and has scars on her neck and wrists, which was why she wore ribbons on her neck and wrists. Dr. Varava also said she disappeared a year ago and they lost track of her, warning, "If it's really Lena, you don't have much time." The scene cuts to Esther removing her fake teeth and taking off her makeup. John goes on the search for Esther in her room but finds she isn't there. Gut in the black light of the aquarium he sees Esther's paintings for what they really are, images of violence and sex. John is mortified but continues on the search, just as the lights go out. He goes downstairs to the electric panel and is stabbed by Esther repeatedly, then looks at the top of the stairs and sees that Max has witnessed the whole thing. Max runs off and hides. Esther grabs John's gun from the safe and goes on the search for Max. Thankfully, Kate has escaped from the hospital and races to the house. The road is so slick though, that when Kate arrives she crashes through the house and alerts Esther, who is upstairs searching for Max. Kate discovers John and breaks down, but her concern lies with Max. Esther finds Kate and shoots her in the shoulder, but Kate is okay and continues the search for Max. We see that Max is in the greenhouse and hiding behind the plants. She is relieved when she sees Kate on the roof of the greenhouse, but Kate tells her to be quiet because Esther is there. Just as Esther is about to discover Max, Kate screams and Esther shoots at her. The roof is made of glass, so the bullet shatters it and Kate comes crashing down on top of Esther. Max waits anxiously before Kate regains conscious and grabs Max and runs. Kate takes Max down to the pond and comforts her, just as she sees police cars pull up to the house to arrest Esther. When the police enter the house, they search the entire household, but when they come to the greenhouse, Esther is gone. At the pond, Kate is continuing to comfort Max when Esther suddenly lunges at her with a knife. Kate and Esther wrestle each other down a hill and right onto the pond, with Max watching on in terror. The gun flies out of Esther's hand as she and Kate wrestle, landing only a few yards away from Max. Esther slashes Kate's other shoulder with the knife, but Kate kicks her off before she can stab her. Max grabs the gun and holds it up, being only 4 and not knowing how to fire. Max aims and shoots the ice instead of Esther. The ice cracks and breaks, and both Esther and Kate fall into the freezing waters. They both fight underwater with the knife. As Kate is climbing out of the water, Esther pops up and grabs onto Kate's legs, the knife hidden behind her back. Esther says, "Please don't let me die, Mommy." Kate finally loses it and yells, "I'm not your fucking mommy," and kicks Esther, breaking her neck. Esther sinks into the icy water and Kate escapes with Max.